072500, request of the police chief to award bids for FY23 police cruisers. And I should say, all councilors with the exception of Councilor Lyons is present.
Thank you, Chair Hamilton. So in front of you, you all have the bid packet. Unfortunately, we only received one bid as a result of the RFP that you all should have received 2 weeks ago. Typically, Quirk Auto always is very effective with their bid, and they are again this year. They have the vehicles actually already ordered and are expecting delivery in late September. The other typical bidder is Darlings. Unfortunately, when we contacted Darlings, they informed us that they would not be submitting a bid because they won't even be potentially ordering any vehicles until August. And at this point, they don't even know what those vehicles will cost or aren't able to submit a bid. So they did not submit a bid. So you look through the packet, and these are the same Ford Explorers that we've been purchasing over the last several years. Prices pretty much what we budgeted, what we expected in the budgeting process. I think it's up maybe a couple $100 from what we had budgeted. And so unless you have any questions.
Can I just get a copy of the agenda? Thank you. Do you want this? Couldn't reach.
Thank you.
The one thing I would draw your attention to in the bid is the trade-in value. And this has become an issue of contention over the last couple of years. So for the two 2017s that we have, that we'll be removing from our fleet, he's suggesting $11,000. I would suggest that we hang on to the vehicles. They have far greater value than $5,500 a piece. We've talked about the possibility of utilizing one for a secondary code vehicle because they're frequently going in separate directions to do their inspections, so one of them has to use their own vehicle when they do that. And then I've been in contact the last couple of years with conversation with HCTC and their law enforcement program about the potential of selling one of our fully equipped retiring cruisers or to them, and would like to explore the opportunity potentially this year if we have one that fits that need to explore the option to sell one of the cars to them. I just think the $5,000 trade-in value, that they're vehicles that have anywhere from 100 to 110,000 miles on them, and have a lot of value and life left for other departments in the city to continue to utilize them. So.
I'll give you $5,500 for one of them right now, sight unseen. Yeah, they have a lot of value left. Mr. Chairman, move to approve the request for the Chief of Police to award a bid to Quirk Ford of Augusta in the amount of $73,770 for two 2022 Ford Police Interceptor Utility K8A all-wheel drive vehicles, both to be funded from the Police Cruiser Capital Account Improvement Account 9090900590007.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. Item 2, Council Order Number 072501, discussion of potential action forming a public safety committee on a public safety building. Manager Motion, do you want to lead it off? Or?
Well, sure. I mean, without going into great detail, we had a committee that explored the concept of a public safety building, and there was a study that was done, a building that was proposed, and then after that whole process was through, and it quickly became understood that it was probably unrealistic that a public safety building was anything that the city was going to be able to afford anytime in the immediate future due to the sheer cost of it. That committee did talk about some alternatives, being perhaps a standalone police department, substations for the fire department, which would allow us to, allow the fire department to have a quicker response to some of our more rural parts of our community. And then the committee morphed into the EMS committee, which is now the EMS committee, and kind of shifted gears away from the concept of public safety building or some sort of accommodations for our public safety. And with the pending addition of EMS and possibly ambulances, and the additional staff that's going to be needed to serve those vehicles and that need for the community, the reality is that our space is really becoming less and less adequate. And so I think, and I had conversation with one potential option out there at the Finance Committee, and that's where the decision was made by Chair Hamilton that perhaps it's time to reinstate that committee and begin the work to look towards the future and some options for housing for our emergency services.
So with that, just looking in terms of suggestions about beyond the council, who else we should recommend to Manager Mosier to be a part of that committee, and then identifying a couple council members to be a part of that. So one question is, are you interested? Two, are there other individuals that should be a part of that so that we can at least explore those ideas in a committee?
Are you talking staff, or are you talking from the public?
Either or, just in terms of giving Manager Mosier some idea about who might be appropriate for that short-term committee.
Who was on the last one?
Oh, that was a while ago.
It was
Previous counselors.
Yeah, police, fire, Mark Blanchette and Bob Miller. And then, but yeah, and previous counselors, it was Steve Beetham,
I believe Gary was.
Gary Fortier. I believe that probably makes up the bulk of it, yeah. And then, of course, police and fire representation.
I would do it. Yeah, I'd do it again. Or would be interested.
Anyone else?
I would support the people who were on the previous committee, who probably have the most knowledge about whatever has been discussed in the past.
All right, so Council Blanchett, Council Miller. You're interested, so there's nothing that prevents us from having three, is there? It's a public meeting anyway, so.
Yeah.
So,
No.
Council Kaplan.
We'll also have police and fire there.
Yeah. Yeah, and this really is about exploring other options. And we've been down the road of, we have it here, we know what it would cost. We had put a lot of money, over $80,000 into that plan or more. Can't remember the final cost. So it's really looking at, we are quickly going to run out of space. If we go in the direction of having EMS, we won't have the space for, down for the fire department in terms of sleeping quarters. The building itself has work that needs to be done. So this committee is really tasked with trying to look at options.
Do we have a copy of that study and how much it would cost? How much did we spend on the study? Do we have to do a new study, or can we just use the old study? And
Yeah, I would suggest
Using
that
the
it's,
information.
yeah, it's not about building. The last committee looked at what it would cost to build new, and it was hired an architect firm, and they developed the whole building and the cost and all of that. So we have that part. This discussion is to maybe taken in other directions in terms of, in lieu of building a new building, what other options might exist in terms of renting space, who would move where, and all of that, to see if we can come up with some reasonable plans. Otherwise, we're just gonna, as a city, we're gonna be, at some point, if the EMS moves forward, and let's say that there's a decision to do that, we won't have the space if we don't have a plan for accommodating the sleeping quarters and everything, so. So it's not about building, it's about all options. And yes, we have that plan, so that should be available for,
Yeah, and at that first, maybe at the first meeting of this committee, we can, I can bring that plan and we can, discuss where we came from, what was previously thought about and explored extensively, and then, because, yeah, some basic background understanding will help to pave the way towards alternatives, which is kind of the purpose here of this group now, is to think outside the box, to say a public safety building is probably not practical right now for our city, being that it comes with a significant price tag, so what are alternatives?
all right,
Do you have to make a motion for it, or no, it's just
Nope.
fine, it's a committee?
just, it's all set. You want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning the special meeting? All those opposed? Did you vote?
Sorry, I meant to
Ah.
raise my hand. I got
All right,
lost.
we will then move into the